Welcome to Prime 9, the countdown show that covers the very best in baseball. Guaranteed to start arguments not end. This episode features the game's top 9 switch hitters. Why 9? That's baseball. 9 players, 9 innings. Prime 9. Right off the bat, you should know we judged our switch hitters exclusively by what they did with the bat.
Billy Davis launches one.
We ignored their fielding prowess and how they ran the bases. It didn't even matter how many pennants they won.
The Yankees have done it again.
No, this is all about how they performed from both sides of the batter's box.
And he remains absolutely torrid no matter what the side of the plate.
And not just for one season either. These quick change artists had to have a voluminous resume.
The great number 7, Mickey Mantle.
Nor will you find many spray hitters on this list. We concluded that most of the very best switch hitters exhibit a potent combination of patience and power at the plate.
Another home run, Ken Singleton.
So here then are your 9 greatest switch hitters, starting with number 9 on Prime 9.
Ken Singleton, big, strong. He swings from both sides.
Ken Singleton became a switch hitter simply through a desire to fit in.
When I first started playing baseball when I was 4 years old, I hit left-handed, even threw left-handed. But I noticed that all the other kids in the neighborhood threw right-handed and hit right-handed. So I tried to do that, and I could do that too.
The fast learner took his talents to the majors. In just his 4th season, led his league in on-base percentage. One of 9 times he'd post an OBP of 380 or higher.
Number 29, Ken Singleton.
The 10 seasons he played in Baltimore were some of his finest. He was the right kind of man for the O's offensive scheme.
Ken Singleton was a power-hitting, patient switch hitter.
This ball is gone.
Earl Weaver loved patient hitters with power, and Singleton was a great fit for that manager and that team.
His patient approach during his decade in Baltimore led him to walk more than 90 times in 6 of those seasons, and he'd finish his career with 246 home runs.
Gone, a home run, Ken Singleton.
Ken was half of the most consistently potent switch-hitting combo the game has ever seen.
I knew that I was going to be batting third each and every night, and I was going to have another great switch hitter batting behind me, and Eddie Murray batting fourth. I'm sure we posed a lot of headaches to opposing managers and opposing teams. By having 3-4 hitters, both switch hitters, it made it difficult for managers to make in-game adjustments as far as their bullpen was concerned.
Late in the ball game, I didn't feel very comfortable because you couldn't go righty-righty, you couldn't go lefty-lefty, and I thought Ken Singleton was just as good from the left side as he is the right side.
Ken Singleton with a deep fly ball to left field, and it has become another home run.
He was a dangerous, dangerous man with the lumber in his hands.
Tell me about Bernie Williams.
Bernie Williams.
Burn, baby, burn.
To be able to have a cleanup hitter who could hit 340, 350, certainly consistently over 300, Yankees hadn't been able to do that since Mickey Mantle's days.
And of course, Bernie had something else in common with the Mick.
I think the fact that Bernie's a switch hitter plays an enormous role not only in who he was as a player, but what he meant to the Yankees, because you couldn't strategize around him.
Oh, Bernie Williams, can you be hotter?
So where did Bernie get his productive two-way talent?
Bernie Williams has taken one deep right-handed and now left-handed.
I have one brother, and I used to play wiffle ball with him. So after my first year, he said, you can't really play with me from the right side because you're a pro now. You got to turn around and, try to even things a little bit. So I started playing, wiffle ball with him from the left side, and I started feeling pretty good.
That's the first Major League home run for Bernie Williams. And I will chance to say there'll be many more.
286 more to be exact. Just one of many things Bernie did so well with the bat during his 16-year tenure with the Yankees. Although quiet by nature, Bernie's work ethic and dedication to his craft rang loud and clear.
Up the middle.
There you go.
He was a natural right-hand hitter, but he worked so hard on the left side that he became a little bit better hitter left-handed than he was right-handed.
Bernie's proficiency from both sides of the plate put him in some exclusive company and earned him 4 World Series titles.
They are the world champions of baseball.
There were times it seemed like Bernie owned Yankee Stadium.
It's mighty high, it's mighty far, and good night.
No doubt about it, Bernie made the right decision to switch things up.
I think after getting married and choosing my agent, it has been the best career move ever for me.
It could be argued that Tim Raines is the greatest switch-hitting leadoff hitter of all time.
When Timmy came up, I mean, you know, this guy was explosive.
Clutch hit by Raines.
Put him at the top of the batting order. And what you did is you disrupted the game. That disruption creates runs.
Raines was so fast, pitchers were loath to walk him, so they were forced to deal with his bat.
The last thing you wanted to see him do with that bat in his hand was get a base hit because he was going to cause all sorts of havoc.
Tim Raines, a 2-run double to left center field.
The Rock, man, the Rock could play. Right-handed and left-handed, had speed. He could hit you out of there. I mean, you couldn't throw him out. He was a monster.
It seemed like Raines was constantly on base in the course of his 23 seasons. And with his all-around prowess, he scored 1,571 runs, 4th most ever among all switch hitters.
He was a game changer. He lead off, still second, still third, scoring a ground ball in the infield. He could also walk up and hit the ball in the ballpark from either side of the plate.
High drive into deep left field. Would you believe a grand slam for Tim Raines?
When you start looking at switch hitters and you look at those leadoff type players, those are the players that you say, well, yeah, they're the on-base guy, the work account, you know, get the infield hit, he'll bunt. But Timmy had the ability to drive the ball.
Ball hit deep into right field. You can't put it on the board.
Making a stellar career from collecting bases, Tim Raines was a rock from both sides of the plate.
He brought a special dimension to the game. He had 5 tools, and he used them all.
Dodgers' only switch hitter will bat left-handed tonight. His best side for power and average.
The men who played alongside of Reggie Smith know just how good he really was.
Reggie Smith was the second best ball player that I played with. Hank Aaron was first, and Reggie Smith was second. And you name whatever Reggie Smith wanted to do, Reggie Smith could do it.
That was a monster.
He was a presence. There was a certain aura around Reggie. You felt like if you knocked him off the plate with a pitch, he might kick everybody's butt on the field. He just had that intimidation factor to go along with his tremendous physical gifts. I'm sure he scared a lot of pitchers into making mistakes.
The pitch blasted high and deep left field. It is gone. Reggie Smith has won it.
Smith debuted with Boston in 1966, and by just his 3rd season, he had become a powerful force in the middle of the lineup.
Reggie was just this consistently outstanding ball player. Could hit from power from both sides of the plate, could hit for average, had very, very good speed.
He had the power, he had the strength, he had the speed. So he really was a complete ball player.
Smith was a prolific presence during his 8 seasons in Boston, no matter where he batted.
Reggie can hit anywhere in the lineup you want him. He can hit first, second, third, fourth, fifth. I mean, anywhere you want to put him. And he brings a big dimension on offense, especially the fact that he's a switch hitter who can hit the ball out of the yard.
Oh, get out of here! Get out of here, Reggie!
In an era better known for pitching dominance, Reggie's career stands out for his extraordinary abilities to hit for power and get on base. The numbers back up what so many believe. He was without a doubt one of the very best.
He was one of the most dynamic switch hitters that ever played in the game.
And Lance Berkman will step to the plate.
Berkman learned how to switch hit as a youth by swinging from both sides at a tire that hung in his backyard. And it sure worked.
How many people are that ambidextrous to be able to switch to both sides? It just speaks volume of the kind of athlete that he is.
He named himself the Big Puma in jest, but man oh man, can this cat hit.
Right-handed, I'm a lot more of a pull hitter than I am left-handed.
He pounded that.
Left-handed, I have a better ability to hit the ball the other way.
Opposite field home run, Lance Berkman.
Really have a much better swing mechanically left-handed than right-handed.
He remains absolutely torrid no matter what the side of the plate.
Berkman's combination of patience and power, both left and right-handed, have enabled him to produce some historic numbers.
This one is gone, a home run, one from each side of the plate.
He ranks first in extra base hits and second in walks among switch hitters through their first 13 seasons in the majors.
The majority of switch hitters are probably more contact type hitters. It is rare to see a guy that, can drive the ball from both sides of the plate.
A tater for Berkman.
In 2001, Lance became one of 5 switch hitters ever to hit 30 home runs and bat .330 in the same season. Opposing managers had no recourse but to pick their poison.
Usually you have a switch hitter who's much better from one side than the other. Traditionally, that's been the case. Lance would tell you he's probably a better left-handed hitter, but you don't see as many opposing managers switching him around to the right side, and that lets you know that he's a dangerous threat from both sides.
Seems like they would need about 6 outfielders the way he's swinging it.
Through his first 13 seasons, Berkman's career slugging and on-base percentages and his OPS ranks second among qualifying switch hitters only to Mickey Mantle.
To be able to do it from the right side and the left side, he just didn't have any holes. He's going to go down as one of the best switch hitters of all time.
Fish swim, third slide, Berkman hits.
Pete Rose was taught to switch hit by his father at an early age. But it was the work ethic he instilled in him that took Pete to another level.
You can be a marginal big leaguer, you can work hard and become a good big leaguer, and you can even work harder and become a great big leaguer. There's a lot of guys who had more ability than me, but none of them had the desire.
Pete Rose willed himself to be equally as good a hitter from either side of the plate.
Very little differentiation with Pete when it came to success from the right side and the left side.
Rose lines one, base hit.
So much of that was from brute repetition. He took more cuts in the cages than anybody else. The most minute flaw that he detected in his stroke, he attacked it aggressively, and swing after swing after swing, he worked it out.
The result was a consistency that all but defied belief.
Pete Rose keeps rolling along.
He lived to hit a baseball. It was the thing that he loved to do more than anything else in life.
For most of his 24 seasons, he was a hit machine, lashing out more doubles, scoring more runs, and accumulating more total bases than any switch hitter in the history of the game.
What a thrill to watch him.
I think being a switch hitter was an incredible boon to his career and the longevity of his career.
If you're going to get all those hits, you have to put the time in, you have to put the work in, you have to put the desire in.
That makes Pete Rose the all-time Major League Baseball hit leader.
Then you start thinking about everybody responsible for you being there. That's what brings the tears to your eyes.
This certainly his crowning achievement.
Pete Rose, of course, the Major League hit leader of all time. He had no weakness as a hitter, either side of the plate. And you would have to place Pete Rose among the top switch hitters of all time.
When Eddie Murray began his minor league career for Baltimore in 1973, he had only ever hit right-handed, but that was about to change.
He was a right-handed hitter, and then he had some weaknesses with the breaking ball, so they started helping him out to become a switch hitter. And as a matter of fact, he became more dangerous left-handed than right-handed after a while.
Indeed he did, racking up extra base hits in bunches. And so many of those base hits drove in runs.
Great nickname for Eddie Murray would have been the Quiet Assassin. He was just one of those guys that didn't say a whole heck of a lot, but you knew whether he came up to swing the bat left-handed or right-handed, you were in for a major fight.
Eddie was the best switch hitter I ever saw. He had no weaknesses either side. He was a tough out both ways. I don't know how you pitch him.
An 8-time All-Star, Murray finished in the top 5 in MVP voting 5 straight years and 6 overall, and had a knack for coming through in the clutch.
The chance of Eddie. Eddie, listen to the crowd.
Eddie was on time. He was like a train that was never late. It just seemed that when you needed a big hit, Eddie was able to come up with it.
And it seems like any time the game was on the line, it was Eddie Murray that delivered, and it didn't matter what side of the plate, he could do it from either side.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody any better in the clutch, whether it's a right-handed hitter, left-handed hitter, or a switch hitter, than Eddie Murray.
Murray is the only switch hitter ever to get 3,000 hits and hit more than 500 home runs.
500 for Eddie Murray.
And is one of just 4 men in the history of the game to accomplish this feat.
3,000 hits, 500 home runs. I mean, he made all-star teams. He was a world champion. He clearly is one of the best switch hitters of all time.
We now return to Prime 9, where in this episode, we're featuring the game's greatest switch hitters. We made our judgment strictly on the basis of what these men did with the bat, and they had to have done so for a considerable length of time. So with a nod to the present and the past, we now present our selections for the 2 greatest switch hitters in baseball history. We begin with number 2. Although Chipper Jones was already switch hitting when he broke into the majors, it was still a work in progress.
I'm a natural right-handed hitter, and I learned very early on that I had a long way to go from their left-hand side. So every day I needed to take twice as many swings from my weak side as I did from my strong side. So for 4 years, I did that until my left-handed swing became on par with the right-hand side.
The fact that he hit 300 from both sides of the plate in 1999 offered evidence that Chipper had reached his goal.
There's no holes to get him out with. I mean, you couldn't turn him around and feel like you had any advantage. And that's what makes him special.
Consistent and with plenty of pop from either side.
It's out of here. He's hit him from both sides of the plate.
His home run totals would put him in a switch hitter's Hall of Fame.
It's gone, home run Chipper. That ball was crushed.
And no matter how you cut it, his cuts produced runs.
That's why Chipper Jones is an MVP candidate. He can do it from both sides of the plate with power.
Chipper Jones has that rare talent, hitting for average and power from both sides. He's the complete switch hitter. He's the best hitter I've ever played with. The statistics certainly speak for themselves.
He's hit 300 throughout his career. He's been a run producer throughout his career. And he's done it without striking out a lot. He's never struck out 100 times in a season. He's walked more times in his career than he has struck out. And that's very, very unusual.
Boy, is he hot. Have a day, Chipper.
Who's a better switch hitter than Chipper Jones? Power, average, RBIs. Name one that's better. I can't think of one.
Well, we didn't have to think too hard to find one.
The great number 7, Mickey Mantle.
When Mickey was a youngster back in Commerce, Oklahoma, there were not very many switch hitters in all of baseball. But Mickey was fortunate to have a father with foresight.
Tell you how much my dad knew about baseball, that was 1936, and he told me someday in Major League Baseball there was going to be platooning.
So his dad made Mickey platoon-proof.
It really saved Mickey's career in a sense that he was a switch hitter, because Casey Stengel, his manager when he came up, was the master of platoon baseball, and he liked to have righties against lefties and lefties against righties. Mantle, by being a switch hitter, forced his way into the lineup on an everyday basis.
And right from the start, it was clear that Mantle would set the bar for switch hitters.
20-year-old Mickey Mantle belts it over the fence.
He comes up and you say, look at the power this guy has. No one has that kind of power, either side.
Mantle became the most prolific switch hitter of all time.
Mickey Mantle hitting home runs with the most powerful stroke ever possessed by a switch hitter.
He switched his way into the 500 home run club.
Mickey did it again. Another home run.
Set slugging standards.
This versatile star bats from either side with equal power.
Led his league in OPS 6 different times.
This is the fantastic sort of moonshot that sets Mickey Mantle apart among sluggers.
And owns the top 7 OPS plus seasons for any switch hitter.
Boy, he was great from both sides of the plate.
What a wallop.
If I had to pick one player of our era, I'd have to say he was the best player.
A 3-time MVP and one of the greatest of all time, Mantle is the only switch hitter to win a Triple Crown.
Mickey Mantle was a very special player, and the fact that he was a switch hitter only elevated the fact that he was a Hall of Fame player.
Mantle was so good, he actually reshaped the game.
Switch hitters were kind of a rarity when Mickey came into the game. He was such a hero that it inspired the next generation to emulate that and learn to switch hit.
When it comes to switch hitters, there's Mickey Mantle, and then there's everyone else. But there is one current player who might make a case for a spot somewhere below the Mick.
Back-to-back home runs from Mark Teixeira. One from the right, one from the left.
Indeed, the Yankees' Mark Teixeira has produced some numbers that eclipse those of any other switch hitter over their first 9 years, including Mantle.
Mark Teixeira, towering home run.
Mark has more RBIs, total bases, and home runs over that 9-year stretch.
That ball is high, it is far, it is gone.
There is, of course, no way to know how long Teixeira will play and how productive he will be. But if he does keep up his current pace, he just might finish his career as a member of some very special switch-hitting clubs.
A monster shot by Mark Teixeira.
That's our Prime 9. What's yours?